So error messages and debug mode can be very helpful when it comes to finding and fixing errors. But you also got one last tool at your disposal, which I also want to show you. And that would be the Flutter developer tools. Now, when using Visual Studio Code, you might sometimes be asked when starting your app whether you want to open those DevTools. And of course, you can open them by using this pop-up, but you can always open them by going to View, Command Palette, or by using this shortcut here in Visual Studio Code. And then here you can type Flutter DevTools and choose this Open DevTools option. And here you can then actually open different parts or different pages of those developer tools. But I personally recommend using this option here, Open DevTools in Web Browser. This opens the developer tools in a new browser window, and this window and these tools here are connected to your running app. And you got various pages here that help you analyze this app whilst it's running. For example, you got the logging page where you see various log messages and also potential error messages you might be getting. You got the network page that can help you with debugging network requests that are being sent by the app. And at the moment, we're not sending any network requests, but we'll do that later in the course. You can analyze your app size. You can analyze the app performance, though if that is what you want to do, as mentioned here, you should use profile mode by starting the app in profile mode by clicking this profile button here above the main function. Because in debug and also in the regular development run mode, there are too many helper tools going on behind the scenes by Flutter to help you with development, but those tools all slow down the app, and in profile mode there is less of that, and therefore it's this profile mode that could help you improve app performance and analyze how performant your app is. You also got a debugger here in case you don't want to use the debugging features built into Visual Studio Code, which I just showed you. But for this section here, I want to focus on this Flutter inspector, because this inspector can help you with analyzing and optimizing your layouts and inspecting your widgets. For that, you see your currently rendered widget tree here. And that's basically your UI, which you see here on the screen on the left, translated to a nested widget tree where you can see how those different widgets are related to each other. And this can be very useful for understanding what's going on your user interface and which widgets are actually involved in that user interface. But of course, you can also select those different widgets and learn a bit more about them. You always get a layout explorer here on the right, where you can see the width and the height of a selected widget and its relation to its parent widget. And if you hover over a widget here in this widget tree, you also get a window that helps you dive into the actual widget object that's being rendered behind the scenes by Flutter. And you can, for example, explore its state or any other properties that are set on that object. And this is, of course, not just available for Material app, but for all your widgets. Now, when selecting a column or a row here, you even have an interactive preview here on the right, or an interactive layout explorer to be precise, on the right, where you can adjust the main and cross-axis alignment directly at runtime from inside those Flutter DevTools. You can, of course, always do that from inside your code by editing cross-axis alignment and main axis alignment in here. And if you then save your code changes, the UI would update automatically as well, as you saw throughout this course already. But you can do it in an even more convenient way by using these drop-downs here to quickly try out different settings and see how your user interface changes if you change those settings. For example, here you can see that the identifier of the row I selected here moves around if I switch between start, end, and center for my cross-axis alignment for this row. And you can do this for all your column and row widgets that you have here. And this can be very useful for quickly trying out different options and finding out why certain elements are positioned the way they are positioned. In addition, even for non-column and row widgets, you get this layout explorer here on the right, which helps you understand which width and height the selected item has and how it's related to its parent widget. And you have this widget details tree into which you can dive, where you can also, again, analyze the different properties and settings that are set on that widget. For example, for this text widget, the text that's added to it, the color that was chosen, the size that was automatically derived, and many other things as well. And these can all be very useful features for analyzing your UI. In addition, if you know that you want to analyze a specific widget, but you don't want to search for it manually in this typically quite long widget tree here, you can use this button to select the widget from inside the screen and to also see the widget that is currently selected. So here, if I know that it's actually this chosen answer here which I want to inspect, I can click on it after clicking on this button, and it will then be selected here in this widget tree, and I can then again use the details tree and the layout explorer. If I then want to select another item, I just have to click on this magnifying glass here at the bottom corner, and then I can select another item. So that's all very useful. I can always disable this mode, of course, if I'm done for the day. And in addition to that, I also got some other features here where I can, for example, see some guidelines to understand why things are positioned the way they are positioned and how they are related to each other. For example, why a certain item is centered or anything like that. I can show text baselines to make sure that all my text is aligned the way I want it to be aligned. And if I restart this app here, if I'm on a screen that contains an image, I can also use this last button here to highlight images that are basically too big. In this case, nothing changes because this image here isn't too big, but in other apps you might indeed get some hint here that an image is unnecessarily big because you're resizing it such that it's way smaller than the original image in the file, and in such cases you might want to decrease the image in the file as well so that you're not unnecessarily loading a too big image into memory. Well, and that's it for the DevTools. Definitely feel free to play around with them. Combined with the debug mode I showed you and the error messages that are shown by Flutter if things go wrong, you now do have a solid set of tools that should allow you to find, understand, and fix errors, and it should allow you to build exactly the apps and the app user interfaces that you want to build.